We're super excited today. This is the first guest podcast that we've had on our second season of the Soulful Leader podcast. And the woman that we interviewed is just spectacular. Spectacular. She runs a YMCA in Canada, which, just like every organization, really struggled going into COVID. And I know a lot of YMCAs didn't make it. And she and her Y not only made it through COVID, but they ended up thriving. And her commitment to her why, when I say her why, I'm not talking about the YMCA. I am actually, and to her own internal, like why she was there and what the YMCA meant to her and her alignment with the values and with the people. And I mean, the whole conversation was so powerful along those lines. And what what came out of it for me was how important it is for us as leaders, soulful leaders, to really be aware of that and making sure that we're aligned with the people and the places that are going where we're going and how we measure that.
Well, and what was really struck me interest on her success was that she had to change her operating system. She couldn't operate on the same old paradigms that she was governed by in the way of like in her own self. And that was all true of all of us. But so many leaders didn't know how to shift into a new operating system where she focused on her, like you said, her why, WHY, and the why, but she really focused on her people and in building her team and becoming very transparent. And she had a whole new way of operating that scaled her up more successful than anyone. I think even to herself, I think she even surprised herself of how it shifted. And I just think it's such a great podcast and such a good exemplar of what a soulful leader is.
Yeah.
That you could step outside of your comfort zone in a way that really stretches you, but also inspires you. And it's not necessarily even in your gifts and strengths that you cannot do it alone. Like you actually do need to involve other people. And how do we do that? How do we open our hearts and feel safe enough to actually empower others to join us with us? And that's what you're going to hear in this podcast is what she did and how she did it differently. And even how she even led herself through it.
I love that. Please let us know your thoughts. We would love to hear your opinions. Remember, you can find us on both LinkedIn and Facebook under the Soulful Leaders. Enjoy the podcast.
In a world where we have everything and it's still not enough, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there's more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old push your way through and claim the deeper, more meaningful life that's calling you.
That's what we invite you to explore with us.
We're your hosts,
Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslak. And this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Yay! Welcome to the Soulful Leader Podcast. This is Stephanie and I'm here with Maren, and we have a special guest today, Trina Clarke from the YMCA in Cumberland County. That's in Nova Scotia, Canada, for some of my listeners that are listening south of the border. And I'm super, super excited because I've known Trina for a long, long time. I myself am a volunteer with the Y, and I've seen so many ups and downs and sideways and arounds, and the most consistent leadership that I've seen has come from Trina, and she's such a role model for me. And it's such an honor to be able to serve her vision and her mission. And I just really wanted to share that with you all who are listening. So welcome, Trina.
Well, thank you so much. It's not often I hear someone who I consider a role model call me a role model for them. So that's kind of fun. Thanks, Stephanie, very much.
So one of the things that you and I were speaking with recently, and it was a question that really, really touched my heart, is you had asked a group of us to say, what kind of community do you want to be a part of? And to me, that is so much of a soulful question, because it's not about trying to figure it out. And that's what we're leaving behind. But it's like, what do we want to step into? What is calling from within us? And I would love to know more about even where you got that question, because you have a really cool background of working with little ones, starting them right from preschool or all the way up. And I would just love for if you could share a little bit about your evolution from childcare teacher all the way through in the community, and where that question of what kind of community do you want to live in and why that's important to you. There's a lot of
Sure.
questions in there. Sorry.
So yeah, no, it's like going right to my bio. I've been with the Y for 27 years, and I started at the Y when my oldest was 9 months old. I was just looking for a little part-time gig, something just to get me out of the house, to be in community and put my skills to work. That part-time lasted, I don't know, like a month. Maybe a little more, but I very quickly I was full time, and I've been at this Y ever since. I've had so many roles. I've been, preschool teacher, after school program supervisor. I was childcare manager for several years, and then 2008, the opportunity presented itself that the Y really needed. We really had to pivot and change who we were as an organization if we were going to be able to continue to serve community. So that opportunity in 2008 came to me to do the interim CEO role, and I never left.
Yeah, in term to here you are 27 years later.
Here I am. Yes, here
You
I
know,
am.
I wonder, I think that happens to more of us than we realize. We think it's just going to be oh, well, I'll do this in the meantime. And then we either realize that we really wanted to be there, or we fell in love with it, or it's kind of like oftentimes life and spirit kind of sneak in through the back door, and we don't realize, like, but I thought I was going to, do this. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were saying that, they thought they were going to do X, Y, and Z, and they ended up being a parent instead. They never saw themselves as being a parent. And that ended up being this woman's life. And she's like, I'm so grateful for that.
I would have never expected to love this role because I loved working with children and I loved the families. And I really thought this was a very short-term thing for me. But in this role, it gave me the opportunity to kind of maybe this is going to sound corny, but like to wrap my arms around all of community. So like to build a better YMCA for seniors, to build a better YMCA for families, that childcare is still, of course, a very important part of what we do, but there are so many other elements that are important, including our community development, which led to that question, Stephanie, of what kind of a community do we want to live in? Because I believe the Y is the center of that community. And we have a responsibility to be more than just, the swimming pool and the fitness classes and the childcare. We have a responsibility to be an impact on our community as a whole so that everybody has that opportunity to feel like they belong, and not just belong, but thrive, which is our YMCA vision, but also happens to be my vision. That's what I want, is everybody to feel like that YMCA experience within their community.
I just felt like totally touches my heart. I'm like almost welling up going, yes, this is why I hang out with you. Like, it's just like, to me, that's soulful. It's more than just yourself. You have a vision that encompasses so much more and calls from within you so much to be more. And I would love to know a little bit more about that, because I know in the last few years, like all of us, we've gone through so many changes with, going through a pandemic together, and, people coming and going and leaving and moving and arriving. And there's been so much change. I would love to know, what was it that sustained you through that? Like, what was it? Because it was challenging.
It was challenging. And I will say I've been here 27 years. And right now is probably the most fun I've ever had being at the Y, because there's so many new and exciting things and we're growing in so many different ways. But I think what's kept me here is right from day one, this is a values driven organization, and my values align with the YMCA's values. And so, that old adage, if you love what you do, you never work a day. Well, for me, that wasn't my mindset. My mindset has always been we have a finite amount of time on this earth, and I don't want to get to the point where I look back and feel like I've wasted my entire career time doing something that didn't make me happy, or it didn't make me fulfilled, or for me didn't make me feel like I was impacting my community in a positive way. And I've never felt that way with the Y. I always felt every single day that I'm coming to work with a purpose, not a paycheck.
Oh, that's great.
The best leaders, and when I say the best leaders, what does best mean? What I mean by that is the ones who really inspire us, that make us want to follow them, that we feel like I could align with that person and get on board. And what Stephanie said, it's like, that's why I hang out with you. And I know it's not just Stephanie that's feeling like that. And what I'm hearing is like the things that those leaders do, or what you're talking about, is your values align with the wise value, aligned with the people, it goes back to the community that you want to create. What is the community that I want to be a part of? And how do I find those people? The way I find them is by creating, for you, the way you found them was by creating a space, a place where they could come and they could find you. And you raised your flag and you said, this is what we stand for here. And starting from the top and all the way through, in the like it aligns, the entire organization aligns, and it's vertically aligned, instead of, well, maybe we're just a swimming place, maybe we're just a kids care place, maybe we're this, maybe there's no maybes. It's, we're all of this, we're a community. I just love that. It's so beautiful.
I've always felt like my greatest strength was to surround myself with really good people. The team here that I work with every day, we've gotten as far as we have because of them, because they're also doing what they should be doing. They're living their purpose. And I've been here a long time, and I've been here through ups and downs and a lot of different folks. And I kind of have this, if we use the term "why" person, but if someone is a why person, right? You can tell pretty quickly, like if they're here because it's a job and they need a job, or if they're here because they want to make a tangible difference every single day. And quite often, and Stephanie would know this because she helped through this process with us a few years ago, is that the folks that aren't why folks, that aren't here, that don't align, they pretty quickly leave. They don't tend to stick around, and that's okay. But we're grateful for the gift of them when we had them, because every single person that has come through our why has helped to make our why better. So we learn. But it is interesting, and the people that I'm with now have been here quite a long time, and I've had many leave that have left for really good reasons, but it's been really tearful. And that's the other thing about me that Stephanie knows, is that I am a very emotional person. And when I was first in this role, I had a really hard time with that, because I thought that was a show of weakness, that I would get, that my emotions would rise to the surface. But I've come into my own now, and I understand that being a part of my authentic self is to not suppress that, and it's okay. It's actually a sign of strength to be vulnerable. So I've done that, and I've cried with my team, and my team has cried with me as well. Like, we're each other's support system. Like, we're there for one another, and I think that's what makes us stronger and not afraid to take risk, because that's a big part of our growth. Is we're taking risks right now, and it's a little bit scary, but we all have each other's back. So that we're taking that leap together makes a big difference.
I totally I totally resonate with that. And that's what I love about you, is that you're real and you're not afraid to say, man, this is really touching my heart and I need help with this. And to me, that humility and that willingness to not only ask for help, but also to get it is, to me, exemplifies why I see you as a role model too. Like you are leading a ship. You're leading a great possibility, but you're including everyone on the team with you. And so that there's not necessarily a hierarchy, even though there is, it's like a both and. And to me, it's so refreshing. You hold the vision and you hold the values and you work with that, and you allow space for other to also offer up their possibilities too. And I think that's why, and I'd actually love to have you talk a little bit about that, because during the pandemic, it was challenging. And like you said, the team really came together. And the reason I'm saying is that years ago, when we did work with the team, we did what we have just been speaking about in the Soulful Leader podcast of the wealth dynamics square, and the different attributes and the different flows and the different frequencies. And when originally we did yours, you came out as what is known as a Lord. And that the Lord is a steel profile. So it's all about looking at details. It's the controller, and not in the way of controlling people, but wanting to need to have control of the helm and knowing what's coming and what's going, and being able to really steward that. And we just recently did it again, which is part of one of the things that we want to do with all of those that we are speaking with here on our podcast, is to be able to offer that gift of hey, let's drop into finding your gifts and strengths and helping you leverage them in the way, because we do see you as a soulful leader, and we want to help make that even more kinder and possible for you to keep serving the community the way you do. Now, you came out as a different profile this time. So that can happen. And I think I would just love to have you share a little bit about who you were then and maybe what shifted.
Sure. So this time I came out as a creator. And I will say that when I did it, when I did it a few years ago and came out as a Lord, I was disappointed, because I read it and I certainly could see myself, but it's not how I saw myself, if that makes sense. So, and then when I did it this time, and I was very honest, I mean, I'm filling it out and when I did it this time and it came out as a creator, and then you look at all of the things like that, what that means, and I was like, yes, that's me. Yes, that's me. Yes. I brought it home and I was reading it to my husband. He's like, oh, whoa, that's you dead on. And especially the part about being impatient and, that stuff. But I think that when I did it a few years ago, I think we also, as people, we change and we evolve. And I think we also adapt to the circumstances that we're in. And I think at that point in time, I did need to be an analyst for our organization and for myself even, and be detail oriented and all of those things. So I don't think it was wrong at the time, but I didn't feel it didn't resonate with me as being truly authentic of who I thought that I was. But I think it was who I needed to be in that moment, when I did it. And I think over the last few years, and Stephanie, you know this as well, that I've done a lot of deep dive. My role here has changed a bit. I've had new opportunities, and I feel like I have finally come into my own and have recognize, even before I filled that out, that's why I questioned, what do you think it might be different? That's what, and it was, because I'm not the same. And I know I'm not the same. And I have a different level of confidence in my abilities. I don't question myself as much. I feel my worth and value that I bring to conversations where previously I would have held back. I would have deferred to others and assumed that they knew better than I did. And, those kinds of things. But so I'm glad that it's different, and I'm glad that it is resonating so much with me when I think of the work that I'm doing in childcare expansions throughout the province, and as CEO here with, working on affordable housing with my team, and integrated youth services that is just announced last week. There's really, really exciting things happening, and the creator role fits this to a T, because we're building. We're building, and we need to be optimistic we can achieve these things and get them done. And we need big picture thinking right now of what do we want the Y to look like in a few years.
And I think that was the key shift, because if I'm just remembering back during the pandemic, I think there were a fair amount of Ys that actually closed down, not
There
just in our
were,
province, but across the country, right? There were a lot that really had closed down and weren't able to not only sustain it, but even thrive. And I know you sustained it, and then coming through, the Y actually thrived. I think you're at the highest membership that has ever been in the history of the Y in our community. And you've really shifted a whole outer, like, what if somebody was to measure it, they'd say, yeah, you checked all the boxes in the outer. But what I want to allude to is the internal that changed, because that was really when I worked with you 4 years ago, when we started to do these things, is that we started to work with the internal. And it was almost like it happened just before you needed it to happen.
exactly.
And that old way, and this is very common for many of us, we get projected onto who you should be in order to, be a leader in that role. And when we went through the pandemic, that actually got kind of permission for you to actually let go of that, and then to recreate who you wanted to be and where you were going and your vision.
I think something good that came out of the pandemic, it really gave us a gift of insight that the Y is not bricks and mortar. The Y is people. And we didn't have our building. We were closed. We were not allowed to be in here. But we found a way to continue to serve our community through, food box programs, through online fitness classes. We had our educators reading stories, online to the children, and our cook doing, cooking with the families. It's about the people. And it's almost, I think a part of the success we're having right now was that really cold, sober reminder that it's not the building. We work with international partners, and many of them don't have buildings. In many countries, the YMCA is that tree over there, and that's where we meet at this time to do these things. And the pandemic forced us to do that and to be that. And I think I think it was a gift. I think it was a gift to remind us that why we're doing what we're doing, and that we can change and continue to serve our community in a different way. It's okay if we don't have a building to do it in.
It's such a witness of, like what you just said, people. And yet so often many organizations do profits over people. You actually did the reverse. You did it about people first, which actually created the profit and the sustainability and the growth that you've had.
Yeah, that's so, like you said, Stephanie, so many places we're taught, and it's not that people do it from a place of, it's not malice. It's not that we're taught that profits are the most important thing. Like, if your bottom line doesn't work, then you're out. And as leaders, that's scary. What happens if I get kicked out because I don't, my shareholders or my board or my whatever, even my husband, whoever is judging me. And usually it's the person inside of me that's judging me, that I'm not good enough. A lot of entrepreneurs, they don't have a board, but they do have that, oh, I'm not good enough. I need to close my business because it hasn't been profitable for 3 years, or, all of the self-talk that we, the itty bitty shitty committee, as Stephanie likes to call it. So having that as a wake-up call, like you said, a gift during the pandemic, as a reminder that profit means nothing if the people get stepped on in the process. And I think we've forgotten that as a culture. It's become acceptable that people get stepped on or that the planet gets stepped on. It's like that there's a cost and it's okay. Well, yep, that's just the cost of doing business. Those people over there or that community over there. And coming from the perspective that you were talking about earlier of community, of people, of thinking about the holistic side thing, it's like, and I love that because you came from that place, your bottom line was that much better. And you were finally just recently acknowledged for that role that you took and like really stepped into that, and other people were finally saying yes, thank you for that, and that excites me, that part of it, of like, yes, that's what we need more of, and that's what soulful leadership really is.
So curious, as a soulful leader, which I believe you are, and you have definitely shown us that you are, what are the things that you would tell other leaders in your situation, like that are maybe coming up the ranks from a place that they never ever thought they would actually be? Like, do you have advice or do you have wisdom that you could impart to them of how they could take care of their souls as they transition and evolve and move through difficult times? What would you impart to them?
Oh, well, I think in terms of the work that I do every day, I really like the word nurturing. I think that nurturing myself, and looking after myself, and because the work is a lot, and it can be overcome, but also nurturing your team, because if they don't feel that, then it just makes, I feel it makes more work for you. Because if you're not nurturing them and you're not seeing that they need a break or they need time or they need space or they need to be heard, then that builds up to the point that, they're going to take time. They're going to be gone. And then, what happens? So I think that nurturing is really important. And I think allowing, I mentioned earlier, that space to be vulnerable. Like I often say to my team, I probably share more with you than I should, because they know everything, right?
So transparency.
I'm very I don't hide anything. I'm very transparent
I
and
will
open.
say that is what builds trust. It really does build trust. And as leaders, we're taught to don't do that. Don't tell them, it's like, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. But and I think it's hard for me to advise others because everyone is different. So for me, like, I'm an introvert, but I can't be an introvert and do this role well. So for so much of my day, I have to have a front-facing extroverted personality. I have to speak in front of others. I have to, host meetings. There's so much of that I have to do, that when I tell people I'm not comfortable public speaking, they say, "Oh, no, that can't be right. That can't be true because you do it." Like, but it's never changed. The why has given me that gift of pushing me out of my comfort zone and maybe making me a little bit more comfortable doing it, but I'm still uncomfortable every time I have to do it.
Well, and what I'm hearing too, Trina, is that you know your values. And they happen to also be the YMCA values. You align. And so when you know your values and you're living your values, and the company that you're serving and the community you're serving are those values, it helps you to be able to step out of that comfort zone, and that you've nurtured and built trust in a team. You know that you're not alone. You know that you have other people that have got your back, that can step up when you need them too. I think you're really alluding to a lot of really great insight.
Yeah. I think that the single greatest thing I would want people to learn or to take maybe from me, if I was giving someone one single part of the advice, is find the thing that recharges your battery, that gives you that energy. So for me, because I'm an introvert and I've been on the road the last couple of weeks, I've been away at conference. I was on the road like most of last week, traveling throughout the province. And I could feel it when I got home Friday night. Like I was just done. Like I didn't want to have to talk to another person for a while, right? I needed that. I needed to step back. I needed to breathe. I needed to do the things that give me back my energy, which are solo activities. Like I love walking on the marsh. Like my house is, I have marsh all around me. It's been called the biggest hayfield in the world because it's just nothing but hayfield all around me. So to go for a walk, to read, to practice yoga. I don't do yoga in a class with others because that part of my personality, in order for me to get what I need out of it, I need to do it alone. And I love photography. Again, pretty solo activity. But those are the things that recharge me and give me energy so that I can do that extrovert piece when I need to, in order to feel like I'm doing a service and doing my job well. I know there's a component of that and that I have to be able to do. So that's what I would say to people. And for some people, especially extroverted people, it's being around lots of people. It's being very, very social, and that's where they get their energy. So, that's why I say it's hard for me to advise somebody. I know what works for me, but I think it's the piece I would say is find what works for you and make sure you're practicing it as often as possible so that you're constantly recharging yourself.
I think that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to one of the things that you were talking about earlier was, feeling that evolution from the profile test steel energy to the profile test, 4 years later, of being what's dynamo energy, which is the creator that you were talking about. And there are a couple of things that I was thinking about when we were talking about that, and one of them was the fact that, first of all, we all have all the energies in us. And that's one of the things that oftentimes we'll do with profile tests is we'll define ourselves and be like, oh, that's me, just this one piece. And we actually are all of them. We're just more in flow in one place. And then the second piece, the thing that really stood out to me was how conditioned we are to be a certain thing, especially in business, right? Well, you need to do this. And those are the things you're like, I need to do this. I need to do it this way. And so, yes, that's who I am. So we claim it. And I love that because it actually does serve us until it doesn't, because we're not quite in flow in that place. And so you did the inner work over those years. I know you and Stephanie worked on that, and with your team too. I know you did the profile test with the whole team and found the correct support people and put all of that in place. And so it allowed you to get to your place of your happy place of flow. And so, and then you like you said, you had asked to say, has that changed? Because it felt different. And honoring ourselves in that place of, yeah, it does feel different. When we're in flow, it feels different. It feels like, wait a minute, that does feel more authentic. You used that word. It feels more authentic where I am. So I love that you shared that whole progression, because so often we tend to be like, oh, nope, that's who I am, and just define ourselves. And no, you know what? We change, we evolve, and there's reasons for it, and it will be different for everybody. Yeah.
I think if, as all of us working together, I feel like the whole team is in flow because things are, we just seem to be really amazing things are happening, really exciting things are happening. So it's for me, it's about being in flow for myself, but then that translates into my role here. And sometimes it's hard to separate the two. Like I think even after I retire, I probably will still introduce myself as I'm Trina from the Y. Like from the Y is almost my last name. And that's okay. It's okay that they've merged into one. I've been doing it for so long. But I think that's an important component of it, is as we're comfortable in ourselves, then we're bringing that into the work. And I think that the success that we're having, to me, what that says is everybody is feeling that. Everybody is working the way that they can thrive, which means the Y is thriving because of it.
From the inside out, from the inside out. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so very much for being our guest, our first guest on our season 2. I am so grateful. And we look forward to following up with you in the next little while to see how things are unfolding. And Maren, is there anything you would like to add?
Just that when you said it flows from you into the work, and into the why, I want to say it also is flowing into the world. So thank you for that. You are an inspiration, and I know a lot of our guests our listeners will feel the same way. Is there any place, if somebody wants to find out more about the why or about you, is there any place where our listeners could contact you?
YMCAofCumberland.com. Start at the website, and you can find all of the contact information of all of my team there. So thank you so much. This was a real pleasure. I was nervous going in, but it was a real pleasure to chat with both of you, and thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Trina.
And you can find us at the Soulful Leader Podcast and also at tslp.life. We'll see you all next week on the Soulful Leader Podcast.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader Podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslack. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.